just going to play something before the service starts, rather than just stand here. We try to serve a purpose. Free candy bar if you know the name. I don't know that. Baby Ruth.
Thank Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the First Religious Society Unitarian Universalists in Newburyport, Massachusetts. My name is Will Budenhagen, and I am a member of the FRS Men's Group and delighted to welcome you to our church. This service is a result of a sermon that we won at the last year's church auction. The men's group did. We've enjoyed imaging this with Reverend Rebecca and hope you do too. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We are glad you're here. We come together, FRS, online and in person, committed to love, peace, and justice. Our mission and our invitation to us all is to be, come as you are, journey together in love, act with courage, and transform the world. If you're worshiping online or would like to access this morning's order service, please click on the link just below the live stream. This morning, we welcome back the incredible musicians Danny Harrington, John Hunter, and Rusty Scott to our sanctuary. Thank you for sharing your wonderful music with us all this morning. I would like to draw your attention to the many activities and events happening here in the church, listed in your order of service. Everyone is invited to stay for soup and salad immediately following the service in the lower meeting house. After lunch, we will be sharing a 25-minute documentary focusing on interfaith involvement in supporting certain women in the post-Roe world. The film is appropriate for those 13 and older. There will be a brief discussion following the film. Thank you. It is good to be together.
Our call to worship this morning are words of Pema Chodron. She says, the only reason we don't open our hearts and minds to other people is that they trigger confusion in us that we don't feel brave enough or sane enough to deal with. To the degree that we can look clearly and compassionately at ourselves, then we feel confident and fearless about looking into someone else's eyes. You are faithfully called to worship.
The words for the chalice lighting are written in your order of service. Please join us in saying them. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
Each week, we also light 2 candles of peace, representing 2 places on earth we lift up and remember as a sacred encounter with our world. We know there are untold numbers of places on earth that need peace. These 2 we especially hold close in this service and through the week ahead. After each candle is lit, I'll invite you to respond by saying peace, sol, shalom. Our first candle this morning is lit for the 44 states in our country in which an estimated 380 bills designed to remove and dismantle rights, protections, and resources for trans people. This is the worst year in history for anti-trans legislation. We stand firmly rooted in our commitment as a welcoming congregation, and we will do all we can to protect the rights and the dignity and safety of trans people. To this we respond, peace, sol, shalom. Our second candle this morning is lit for the city of Newburyport, where last Monday evening the City Council voted to add Newburyport's signature to the petition encouraging the changing of the seal on the Massachusetts state flag. This change would remove a long-standing image of racism and replace it with something dignifying to the Native people of this state's land. And to this we respond, peace, sol, shalom. Please rise in body or in spirit. Let's join in singing our opening hymn from the Teal hymnal number 1000, Morning Has Come. Please remain standing as we join our voices in our affirmation of faith, followed by the doxology. The words can be found in your order of service. Love is a doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. Please be seated. I'd like to invite forward now all of the children and youth who are with us this morning.
And let's have them come around that way so that they don't feel blocked by the instrument.
So yes, they're exactly right. That's right. They're coming the perfect way. Oh, Nash, be careful climbing over this beautifully large instrument. You can do it. I believe in you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Bruce, and I'm here to talk about my practice of Buddhism and how it relates to Unitarian Universalism. And I have with me a carved statue of the Buddha, well, his head. And is there anything you notice as you study the statue of the Buddha, anything you notice that's unique or odd about his physical appearance? Anything you notice? There's her hand. No? His hair is very unusual indeed. It looks like little pine cones, yes, right? Anything else?
Oh, Charlotte.
His what? His ears are long. That's right. His ears are long. His ears are long for a reason. The Buddha was born into a royal family that was very rich. And he was a prince. And so, like many princes of the day, he dressed in elaborate, gorgeous, rich clothing with lots of jewelry that hung heavily off of his body, his neck. And he wore giant golden earrings with jewels that were so heavy, they weighed his ears down so much that it stretched his ears. And then one day, the Buddha realized that being rich and having anything he wanted wasn't making him any happier. So he gave it away. He gave away the earrings, he gave away the expensive clothes, he gave away everything. And what he realized was it made him happier to be generous, to give generously, than it did to hold on to things. And from that experience, giving generously is a pillar of the Buddhist faith. Now, if you look around, you'll see pillars all over the place here in this sanctuary. All the way around the perimeter are pillars that hold up the balcony. The balcony is where Justin often plays the organ and the choir usually sings, and they're important. And here we have pillars holding up the altar, or the pulpit, where Reverend Rebecca and the worship associates speak, and they're important. And all throughout the building are people who are pillars too. There are people here in the sanctuary, your friends, your family, your parents, who give generously of their time and their talent and their treasure to hold up this church and the life of the church. And you know what? You're pillars too. You're important. You bring gifts and wonderful things to the life of the church. And so together, we are all pillars holding up the life of the church, tall and strong. And so a pillar is something that's tall and strong and holds up something important. One such pillar here at church is named Eliza Goodall. And she made for us this wonderful basket full of origami cranes. Origami, the art of folded paper. And they're beautiful. Eliza told me when she was making these, she felt soothed by the process and recalling, learning the art of origami and the pleasure of seeing each crane come to life in her hand. So it made her happy to make them, and it made her happy to give them. And it would make me happy now to give you a crane to take away with you to your class today. So Mara's going to help us. If you'll all come forward, we'll give you a crane to take with you. We need a private moment, okay? So everybody takes two or three. And I want you to find someone So now, the children will be leaving the sanctuary. Justin will sing them out with Go Now in Peace, number 413. All right, kids, go. Have fun. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. There is a whole basket of cranes here, and we'll have them out back if you'd like to take one with you, if you didn't get one. I'd like to say just a few more words about generosity. It was a conversation with John Mercer, our beloved John Mercer, that influenced me. We were talking about pledging, and John recalled the time when he was challenged to dig deeper. He shared with me how it felt for him to give more to the church than he had ever imagined. And from that conversation, I made a decision to do the same, to reorient how I viewed my pledge to FRS. It involved sacrifice. It also involved coming to view every pledge as generous, because everyone is faced with difficult choices here. And the amount each of us pledges matters less than what it means to us. Every pledge is a generous pledge. But what I didn't expect was a reorientation to my connection and my commitment to the church and to you. In giving more, I gained a sense of ownership, of belonging, and responsibility. Responsibility not like pressure, but like nurturance, as in caring for something that really matters, and appreciating all that the church does for each other, has done for me and James in some particularly difficult years. I used to belong to a church where the name Pillar was reserved for the people who gave the most money. That was not a happy church. Here at FRS, I like to think of everyone as a pillar, Together, we all belong, and we are all, each in our own way, a pillar. Together, standing tall and strong and holding up the life of the church. Together. And that is very important indeed. Thank you.
The men's group at FRS started in the fall of 2018. The Me Too movement was in full swing. In response, Reverend Rebecca was hosting a women's listening group. Bruce Naveau approached the Reverend and said, "What about the men?" She was thrilled. That was our start, and we've been meeting monthly ever since. Personally, over the past 30 years, I've been involved with 3 UU men's groups in Danvers, in Belmont, and now here in Newburyport. The connections I've made with the men in these groups has continued and remains an important part of my life. Now, you might say, and I'm sure most of us know this, many men don't share personal feelings with other men. They'd rather talk about sports, cars, politics, anything but feelings. Well, that's not us. At each meeting, we share an inspirational reading, we talk from the heart, and most importantly, we listen. We've become a very close group. Through sharing and listening, we've grown and connected and supported each other. If you're interested in becoming a part of a men's group here at FRS, there is a contact information in the bulletin and the Steeple newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. My name's Bob Higgins, and I've been a member of the FRS men's group since 2019. When I joined, I knew very few members of the group, but it was not long before it and they became a meaningful part of my life. I too was interested in exploring the question, what, if any, is the role of men in supporting women, of being an ally, while acknowledging that, of course, we are part of the patriarchy that is the root of the issue. It's a question we still wrestle with, and we are eager to hear what Reverend Rebecca will offer, as she has clearly stated one woman's viewpoint later in the service. So what does this group mean to me? It means I'm part of a close-knit, supportive community of men who feel comfortable sharing their experiences, ideas, emotions, and vulnerabilities. It means a place to talk about what it means to be men in a patriarchal society, about ways we can be supportive of the people in our lives of all gender identities, in ways that go beyond saying the right things and having the right points of view. It means a place where we can talk about our relationships with our own fathers, our own children and grandchildren, and about the complicated emotions and struggles we have with our parents, siblings, partners, and children. It means making a commitment to this group, to show up at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning on a cold winter's day, to be there for each other. I recently needed a ride home from the hospital after a minor procedure, and family members were unavailable. I immediately thought of this group, and of course, they came through for me. And it means a place where I try to practice what it means to me to be a Unitarian Universalist and a member of this congregation, to try to bring my authentic self, to be open and accepting of others, to discuss issues of justice and equality, to be thoughtful and curious about the world beyond our own homes and community, and to share a sense of fellowship and belonging. If all that sounds a bit high-minded, it sort of is. I mean, sometimes we spend 75% of our meetings just checking in, sharing what's been going on in our lives over the past month, what's coming up, and inevitably, given our demographics, discussing our health issues, those of our loved ones. Sometimes we never get around to talking about social issues or current events. And believe me, we're not nearly as dead serious as all this sounds. But even if we did only that, just showed up for each other once a month just to listen, to be thoughtful, accepting, and caring, to spend 90 minutes with a group of interesting, smart, thoughtful, and funny men, that's a gift, and it's one I'm extraordinarily grateful for. Thank you, my friends.
Good morning. The generosity of our community is an essential ministry that supports the work of the church both in Newburyport and beyond. Each week, 50% of the Sunday offering that's not designated as a pledge goes to a local community partner engaged in important efforts to transform our region. The March shared collection goes to support UTEC. UTEC's mission is to ignite and nurture the ambition of our most disconnected youth and young people to trade violence and poverty for social and economic success. Serving Lowell, Lawrence, and Haverhill, the program starts behind the walls of correctional facilities and transitions into an intensive program in the community post-release. 87% of young adults in their workforce development programming had no new re-arraignments. This re-arraignment rate is 1/4 the state average. Please help fuel the hope for young people in this program. That would be half of the plate today that is not designated as a pledge, so please be generous. This is a time of year where things get a little conflated and confused because we're raising money the way we do 52 weeks a year, which is with a plate, and at the same time, we're asking, as we do every year, for people to pledge money to give throughout the year that allows us to have a budget and keep things running and so forth and so on. People who may be new to the community may not understand that there are two levels of fundraising going on now at the same time. So to say a little more about the pledging, every March, we come together to commit ourselves financially into the unfolding of the coming church year. This is what fuels our beloved community in its work in keeping the pillars standing and keeping the heat on, paying the salaries, and so forth. It's our annual budget. So please do know there are two things going on here. We come together to make these pledges so that we can plan not just for this coming year, but have an idea of the movement that we will have into the future. How much juice is there in this congregation in terms of what we hope to accomplish and how we will accomplish it? You do not have to be a member to make a pledge, and you have the freedom to decide what pledge amount is right for you. Recall what Reverend Rebecca said a couple of weeks ago. Consider what your pledge means in terms of a weekly or monthly contribution. Consider that if you'd be able to contribute $5 a week, or perhaps 10 or 20, if everyone in our church community contributed $25 a week, the campaign would more than meet its goal. So thank you to the many people who have already made their pledges. So far, we have raised $370,000 of our $550,000 goal. In the weeks ahead, we need the commitment of many more of us, of our members, friends, and supporters, to ensure that FRS remains the special place that you have come to love. Please come join with me in supporting our future. If you would like to make a pledge to support FRS in the coming year, you will find a pledge card in your pew right now. If you don't see one, just raise your hand and an usher will bring you one. When you have filled out the card, please bring it up to the altar where Reverend Rebecca and I will gladly receive it. In order to give online to today's offering, please use the link in your order of service or below the live stream on your screen. You can also make a contribution by text, and of course, you can always write a check and employ the snails to mail it to church for you. Thank you. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Before we move on, I'd just like to say a word. Earlier, at the beginning of the service, we were welcomed by Will. I believe it was Will who was talking. Sorry. We, the musicians, were welcomed earlier at the beginning of the service, and we want to say that we are so thrilled to be here every time you ask us to come. We will come anytime. And the conversation that takes place in this room, this beautiful church, every time I'm here, is simply brilliant.
Thank you.
Each week, we pause to lift up the joys and the sorrows of our beloved faith community. This morning, Tom Himmel, Pastoral Care Associate, will be lighting candles as I read what has been shared with me in advance of the service today. You're always welcome to send me an email and offer something you would like to be read, or to use the journal in our vestibule on your way into the service each Sunday. This morning, I'd like to start by lighting a candle, or two actually, of celebration, one for the gift of music in our lives, and this morning, as it is here to sustain us and to soothe us and to inspire us in so many ways. The second candle is lit for friendship, for friends near and far, for friends who surprise us, for friends who show up when we least expect it, and for friends who make our lives worthwhile. I also light a candle of sorrow and of care as Bruce McEldowney shares with us that his ex-wife, Rachel Cannelly, died on the 14th of March 14th after a long battle with breast cancer. He would like to thank Dana Farber and all of the loved ones who supported her through the years, and most recently especially. And it is soothing and supporting to know that she did die in peace. I light another candle of love and blessed memory and sorrow as I share the very sad news and surprising that our own Michael Fosberg died unexpectedly Friday morning, March 17th. Michael, as many of us know, delivered the welcome from this pulpit for some 14 years, nearly every Sunday. Please hold his wife, Pat Skibby, and their children, John and Kate, and extended family in your loving thoughts as they make their way through this loss. Pat shares that though it was surprising, Michael did have the best care possible, and his death was peaceful. A celebration of life will be held here at FRS. I'll be officiating, and the date and details will be shared in the coming months. We light a final candle, as we do every time we're together, for all of the sorrows and all of the joys that, although unspoken, are held in just as much love and care. I invite you now to join me in a spirit of meditation, centering, and prayer. As we join ourselves in body, mind, and spirit, I invite you to go through an exploration with me in a brief minute or two. I'd like to invite us to tune in, touch in, and connect with our bodies, our minds, and our hearts. Beginning first with the body, your body. What sensations do you find there? If you can take a breath, feel your feet on the floor. Are you holding on? Is there tightness? Tingling? Discomfort? What part of your body is calling to you? And naming this, these are sensations. We all have them. Turning your attention to your mind. What thoughts are running through? The list of things to do, the worrying and the wondering and the questioning, judgments about yourself and others. Just notice the thoughts and name them. Thoughts. My body has sensations, my mind has thoughts, just like everyone else. And turning with an attitude of openness and acceptance, focus now on your heart, your emotions. What feelings are there in you? Maybe one, maybe many. Maybe consistent, perhaps plain tug of war. Gratitude. Sadness. Fear. Delight. Feelings. Passing through. May each and every one of us learn to recognize and accept the sensations, the thoughts, and the feelings as they come and as they go. May it be so.
As Will mentioned, we begin each of our men's groups with an inspirational reading. This was a reading several months ago. I thought I would share it with you. It's by Matthew Lipman, titled, How We Become Our Fathers. My father did this thing once. We were walking the Walking Mall in Iowa City, between Washington and Johnson, maybe. Who can remember? It was so long ago it has no name. He did this thing where he tried to leapfrog a small light pole in the middle of the mall. It was Thursday or Saturday, and there was a herd of people shopping for pants. It was September and wanting to be June. He's a short man, Mel. And when he put out his hands, propelled himself up, his body did not cooperate. And he did not clear the black steel rod, fell right on his face, and I swear I could hear something inside of him die. He must have been 50, 51. And I was trying to write poems, and my folks were divorced, and my old college friend Tom Gaffney was in town, and maybe we had all gotten drunk the night before. And there was my father, splayed out under the Iowa sun, like a frog pinned in a 10th grade biology lab. And I wanted to run so far away from him, into the brick wall behind me, disappear into it, screaming, I do not know this man. I do not know this man. But I didn't, and could only offer him my hand. Later, I could not remember what freaked me out more, watching him fall, or my reaction to watching him fall. Today, on my walk to school, I tried to flip a glass iced tea bottle from one hand to the other. and the cap flew off, and the tea showered itself all over my blue shirt, and the bags I was carrying unloaded onto the earth. And there I was, a hot mess of my father, myself 50, 52, I can't remember. It was Thursday, wanting to be June, and I wanted to run so far from the Belmont sun, from myself, that I couldn't move. A fly pinned to her cardboard in a 10th grade biology class. All I wanted to do was pick everything up, run into a brick wall, and scream, "I do not know this man. I do not know this man," hoping I might meet my father in there with some shard of love inside the red rock on a hot July day wanting to be August. We might actually get the chance to be more alive than we've ever been and break each other's fall before we actually hit the dirt.
As you've heard, last June, for the auction, the members of the men's group put their heads and their wallets together and bought this sermon as their contribution. It was a generous and brilliant idea, and I was so excited to imagine the topic they might choose. Maybe it will be about an obscure theology, I thought. They're deep thinkers, or a famous Unitarian, knowing that many of them have long roots in our faith. The last two times, not here, but in another congregation, that I had sold a sermon, the winners picked the topics of liminality and the Me Too movement as their topics. So it turns out that first we got the date on the calendar. I still didn't exactly know what the topic was going to be, but we put this date on the calendar, and we agreed, the men's group and I, that we would talk more as time grew closer. So early in February, they invited me to join their men's group meeting so we could talk about it. At the meeting, they gave me an article from the New Yorker to read, and it was entitled, "What's the Matter with Men?" Oh, good, I thought. Finally, I get to talk about. Well, it turns out the title didn't mean what I thought it did. Members of the men's group were concerned and bewildered about the information in this article. "What's a man to do?" one member said to me. And that's what they wanted me to preach about. If we had another hour or two, I'd share with you the process I went through to get to what to say. I think they should have paid double. I started by saying, I'm not a man. And I concluded by saying, well, what I'll share is one woman's answer to that question. So just for a moment or a few minutes, I want to share what is in that article, What's the Matter with Men? Written by Idris Kaloun, Washington bureau chief at The Economist. The article describes the plight of men and boys in society, including statistics on their academic standing, workplace trends, and health metrics. Much of what I read was news to me, I'll be honest. They weren't things I understood or was aware of prior to reading it. Things like this: boys are far behind girls academically today at the elementary, high school, and college levels. In 2009, in America, in high schools, the top 10% of class people were 2 times as likely to be female as male. There are close to 2 female undergraduates from college for every male. In the mid-1980s, that ratio was basically 50-50. Additionally, men are leaving the workplace at an alarming rate and not filling it, for example, with volunteerism. And I'll quote, "They, men, are overdosing, drinking themselves to death, and generally dying earlier, including by suicide." And men are powering the new brand, I continue to quote from the article, men are powering the new brand of reactional Republican politics, premised on a return to better times when men could really be men, said the article. These statistics are particularly true among black men. So some people don't want to talk about these statistics. Other people believe these statistics reflect an inevitable adjustment period as women assume a more equitable position in society. Sociologist David Morgan said that these current conditions are moving men away from, quote, an ontological security and confronting the possibility of cultural redundancy. Kalum believes the problems and their solutions are far more complex. I'll end with this quote from the article that he wrote, "Self-doubt has broken through for men the supposed imperviousness of masculine self-belief." Part of my own process was going through much of what I had just said. I don't want to talk about this. Well, of course, there's a rebalancing that is happening. Perhaps it's a little more complex. Richard Reeves, British scholar of inequality and author of a book entitled Of Boys and Men, says, "Men are beset by bewildering changes they cannot adapt to." And he notes that these are the results of the same cultural systems and forces that are now working on men that have historically always applied to other groups of marginalized people. I don't know what to make with the quote I'm about to share. Again, I wish we had a long time to talk. He writes, "Nobody predicted that women would overtake men so rapidly, so comprehensively, or so consistently around the world. Well, I'll be." And yet still, only 10% of CEOs in the Fortune 500 today are female, which is a 26-fold increase from 2000 when there were only 2 female CEOs in that group. Clearly, the current situation among men and boys is not good. The answer, however, and now we move into my reflection and perspective, I am not quoting, the answer of this situation is not to reinstate or reinforce the traditional male patriarchal definition and role of masculinity. The devastation and destruction of that system is clear. It's time for something new. Albert Einstein said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." "What's a man to do?" the men in the men's group asked. And as I have said, I've thought long and hard about my answer to that question. And I've boiled it down to 3 points. What's a man to do? Number 1, do your own work. This includes growing in self-awareness, learning how to appreciate sorrow and emotions, doing grief work, forgiving other people and yourself. Your work includes becoming part of a trusted community that supports you in healing your family of origin wounds, ancestral wounds, discovering your blind spots, developing new skills of emotions and hearts. Your work also includes learning what to do with your rage and anger, including about the expectations and norms that you were given as a man without choice. Learn how to process and transform your rage so you don't transmit it, and then help others transform their rage. Buddhist author Ruth King writes, "May every one of us become more curious and less frightened of rage." Learn about the strength that is in vulnerability and the power that comes from collaboration. Do your own work. Number 2, stay true to who you truly are underneath the expectations, burdens, and privileges of traditional manhood. Bring your true self into the world. Don't let cynicism or fear keep you away. Debunk the myth of being too old or over the hill. North Carolina State University professor of sociology, Michael Schlaub, in his article, The Hazards of Manhood, writes this: "Most American men know perfectly well the qualities they must display to be considered fully credible as men: power, competitiveness, and toughness. This turns out to be enormously useful for generating profit. Just give men opportunities to display manhood in these ways, and they'll do things that add to the bottom line, even if it's to their own detriment. Question what you've been told. Drop what doesn't work. Be brave. Be who you truly are. The person I see when we sit alone and talk in my office. Be that person. Because who you are matters a lot. So stay true to who you are. Which brings me to my third suggestion. And I'll admit I'm going to speak a little more on this one than the first two. Listen to, please, listen to, and help women and other traditionally marginalized people. As a man, you have irrefutable power, even if you are older than 65, even if you don't have a job, even if you like women, even if you don't believe in patriarchal values. What you believe matters. How you act and use the power that you have matters more. Women know about male power. Many of our foundational myths are in this way stories about men related to men by other men, writes Calhoun. I, Reverend Rebecca, have received 2 master's degrees, one in business and the other in theology. Both were almost entirely taught by and educated through perspectives of men. We were to be glad if a professor offered a female perspective. I was taught what men believe about power. I've also been harmed by it in micro and devastating ways. Are you willing to learn from women? Olympic soccer player Abby Wambach writes about a feminine understanding of power in her book, Wolfpack. And she writes this, and this is a strong woman upon whom I have a crush. She writes, "The picture of leadership is not just a man at the head of the table. It is also every woman who is allowing her voice to guide her life and the lives of those she cares about. Leadership is volunteering at the local school, speaking encouraging words to a friend, holding the hand of a dying parent. It's tying dirty shoelaces, going to therapy, saying to your families and friends, no, we don't do unkindness. It's signing up to run the school board, driving single moms' kids home from practice, creating boundaries that prove to the world you value yourself. Leadership is taking care of yourself and empowering others to do the same. Leadership is not a position to earn. It is an inherent power to claim. Leadership is the blood that runs through your veins. It's born in you. It's not the privilege of a few. It is the right and responsibility of all. Leadership is not a title the world gives you. It's an offering you give the world. Be willing to learn from women and other traditionally marginalized people. Sexism is still real, even as the trends for boys and men are disturbing and need to be addressed. I could offer many examples within Unitarian Universalist congregations where we pride ourselves on being ahead of the curve regarding sexism and other things. Let me just offer a couple. A new minister was negotiating her starting salary. A male leader in the congregation said, "Why do we have to pay her so much? Isn't she married?" A female minister can buy a clerical robe fitted for women or that has 3 velvet stripes representing her PhD. Not both. A male minister can be called Tom, Dick, or Harry, and people don't question his authority. They also don't comment on his hairstyle, the size of his body. But that same authority is not presumed for a female minister, whether white, black, or trans. Act on behalf of women. When the scandal with Robert Kraft visiting massage parlors in Florida happened, I was appalled. The men I spoke to about it said, "These are men you know. People know it's wrong. We don't need to say anything." Yet silence is saying something. Your voices matter. They matter so much. They matter to me and many women. We care that you speak out and that you act alongside of us. 1 in 3 women have been victims of sexual abuse, including me. It is much higher when we include other forms of physical violence. These things cannot help but affect us. Listen to and help women. Don't rescue us. We don't need that. But be part of the solution. The day I shared first about my own experience with sexual abuse, Michael Fosberg came up to me downstairs. He chased after me to find me, and he said, Reverend Rebecca, I'm so sorry. I don't know anyone else that this has happened to. Yes, you do, Michael. Yes, you do. I'm not saying those things for me. I'd much rather not. I'm saying it for the woman listening and wondering why I don't speak that truth. So men, you're not personally responsible for patriarchy, but there are things you can do. Do your own work. Stay true to who you are under the expectations and burdens of manhood. Listen to and help women and other traditionally marginalized people so that we may be in right relationship with each other. I know who you are. I love who you are. You are beautiful people. Join us. We're at a pivotal time. That article, What's Wrong with Men, ended with this quote: masculinity is fragile, it's also malleable. The shape that it will assume in the future has consequences. Do your work. Be who you truly are. Listen to and help women. Thank you for asking. Amen and blessed be. Let's rise together in body or spirit. Let's join in hymn 318, We Would Be One. Please remain standing and let's join in our unison benediction as someone extinguishes the chalice. Maybe Bob or Joe. Bruce, the words for the benediction are in your order of service. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us now and always. Again, my friends, everyone's invited to stay for soup and salad and our Justice Sunday. But as we go from this place, go lifted up, go filled with emotions and thoughts and sensations that tell you that there is love, there is joy, there is beauty, and there is peace, there is community. That life is, after all, so worthwhile. Go in peace, my friends. Return again in great joy. Amen and blessed be.